Hi, good morning. Welcome back. I'm here to do a layout for us, and it's been nice because I quit a job that I had hung on to that was just a per diem job. Like I would go at 1 day a week. And I have this extra day now that I'm like, oh, it feels so kind of exciting and cool that I can just use this day to do a reading if I want. That was still kind of a challenge of trying to figure out where to fit in readings around the rest of my life, and now I have more room to dedicate to it, and it feels really good. I'm glad I gave that to myself because it was not an easy decision, but now I feel like it's emotionally really paying off for me. So that's the vibe I'm in this morning, getting ready to do this reading, is just feeling so great about that choice after some pretty serious anxiety about it. And so when I woke up this morning, I'm also glad because I had a really intense sort of prequel or like pre-thought or precognition about the layout that I should do, which was really about anthems. And I'm not sure where the word anthem was coming from, but it was, I mean, anthems are known, to be rallying for people, right? And so I started thinking I should speak to anthems because I definitely use music in that way to help myself pull out of a dark mood or to help myself embrace my dark mood. Music is so great for stuff like that, right? And so anthems really came through, and it was specifically anthems to help rally us and rally our spirits and help us feel a boost because these are dark times, right? And so anthems are a way that we can boost our own morale, and music's been used like that forever, right? Like it's just anthems, I guess. I don't need to say any more about it, but it was a big theme for me waking up about include anthems in your reading. So now what I'm going to do is I have a personal story about the anthem that came through for me, which is a personal anthem, but it's one that there's some power layers to having a personal anthem like this for me, and I just want to acknowledge it outright because there's some dynamics about white women and black men, and I just want to acknowledge it. And I'm not sure what else I want to say about that other than this is the song that is a personal anthem of mine that came through to help me know that I should do a reading where anthems are the theme. And it's a song by A$AP Rocky called Fucking Problems. And so if you don't know that song, look it up. It's a great anthem. It's an anthem for me, and I'm sure it's an anthem for a lot of people, both men and women. It sounds maybe like I'm usurping or co-opting something about why I feel like that's an anthem for me, when really that's pretty outside my world that I grew up in, right? The world of A$AP Rocky. I grew up in a rural white community. But at the end of the layout, I'll get to kind of my own story about why that's an anthem and why I felt really pumped and excited to do this layout. And so the other kind of theme was like, if you're really feeling down and out, doing a playlist of anthems that are personal for you can really help you right now. And it was just an idea. And now the deck I'm going to use, I'm going to do a point in time layout for us. What should we know to help us rally ourselves? What should we know to help us kind of burst out of any sort of feeling of powerlessness or hopelessness and into a feeling of empowerment? Like Rocky Balboa, right? That's another powerful Rocky. Those songs from Rocky are like notorious anthems, right? In a kind of tongue-in-cheek way for me anyways, like Eye of the Tiger and stuff. But anyhow, so Fucking Problems, that was the song that came through for a personal anthem. I have lots and lots of other personal anthems. That happens to be one of them, but it's a favorite one. I love it. I always feel empowered when I hear it. And so the point in time reading I'm going to do today is just for us, and it's using the Soleone deck, which is a rare Italian deck that I was gifted many years ago, and I feel really honored to have. I've spoken more about this deck in other readings, but this deck is a spin on the traditional tarot power sequence. So this is by an Italian artist, Elisabetta Casari. And the deck is very dark, so that's why it went out of print. It wasn't received very well when it was designed, I don't think, because it's really dark and bloody. But the reason it's dark and bloody is because it explores the peasant class overthrowing a kingdom, basically. And so the images are around that, the success of the peasants in overthrowing um, the ruling class, the kingdom in this case, because this is during like still the days of kingdoms, right? So I thought this will be the perfect deck. And this will just be a point in time for us. What's coming for us? What should we know? How can we feel that burst of anthemic energy that we need to get through these crazy times right now that we might be feeling? I split the deck and it's the Hierophant and the Ace of Wands, so that's very appropriate. How do we rebel against the traditional order? How do we find that lit fire to keep going when something like the Catholic Church was pretty fucking powerful, right? So what are some ways that we can do that for ourselves? This deck's a little hard for me to shuffle because it's so big. I find that to be the case with a lot of decks. I know a lot of other card readers struggle with that too, and I can't do the... Here, let me see if I can do a little better. Let me just concentrate here for a second on this shuffle. What should we know about? What's coming around the corner for us? Do we have any blind spots? How can we keep our morale up? How can we keep ourselves going? Can this reading be like an anthem for us? What is going to keep us going? What's helpful for us to know right now? Personally or societally or globally or spiritually, right? Whatever comes out. And this layout is in the just shape of linear time. That's how this reading reads. Where are we in time? What's coming? Do we have blind spots that we should be aware of? How can we keep our morale up? What's the message here? Thank you. Thank you for being here. It looks like this might be a love reading for someone. So you might be going through a heartbreak or feeling in a separation or no contact with somebody that you love. Let's see here. We're right here in time. This is the Fool card, which is how we're placed in this layout. This card represents us. So we're going to get some nice context here and some future energy. So what's been leading us to this moment? What's context for us so you know if this reading is going to be helpful for you to attend to? So there's been some manifestation or some literal magic. You might be someone who practices magic. The Magician card is the very first reading card. So that's a big card to come out here right out of the start in time here. I think that's for a reason, and it's to catch our attention that there's been really powerful energy in play. Either through you or through the people around you or both, right? There's a lot of powerful, creative creation energy that might seem mystical or mysterious in some way. Like, how is this person doing it? Or how are they doing it? Like, what's their secret? Some kind of creation that's happening in a powerful way, like in a masterful way. There's also been maybe a message of love that came to you recently. Someone might have sent you a loving message. This is the Page of Wands followed right away by the Two of Cups. But in this deck, the Two of Cups here, because this is an unusual deck, the Two of Cups has some power dynamics involved. So this message of love, while it was a good message, and maybe it made you feel very loved and cared for, there was also part of you that wanted to run away from it, or that felt overwhelmed, or maybe like it was gonna smother you. Because if you look here, there's this person kind of trying to get away from this expression of love, possibly, right? So this might have been you feeling like, oh, whoa, look at this message that came in. I'm curious about this. And then when the message came in, it overwhelmed your system or something, right? This might be the impact that it had on you was that it made you feel like you were under a spell, or made you feel like you lost control. There might be something to this love that makes you feel afraid in some way. We'll keep going. This is a reading about anthems and how to keep our morale up and keep going. So keep that in mind as this is unfolding. This has something to do with an expression of love. And again, like I said, right beyond this expression of love, it puts you into a feeling of conflict. You're in a feeling of conflict about what you're trying to get going now. It might have been that this message of love disrupted something for you or made you feel back in a place of conflict. Like, if I could see that happening, if this is a relationship where you have not been in contact with one another, that suddenly this loving communication threw you into a place of mental conflict again. Maybe you were just starting to feel like, okay, maybe there's light beyond the sadness about this relationship, and now all of a sudden, what? Hold the phone, here's some new information coming in, and I'm all torn about it. I'm torn up about it. This may have something to do with whether you are going to create something with this Queen of Cups. I have a feeling that the Queen of Cups here is the person that spoke this to you in some way. And so now you're in conflict about, how do I want to maybe join up with her? How do I want to keep myself going? Where do I want? This is an interesting expression of the Fool here, only it's the Three of Wands. Normally, in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, a figure like this is a very Fool-like image. Here it's the Three of Wands, but I think it's no coincidence that she used the Fool as an archetype for this, because it is about a new start, a creative fire. You have the courage. You have the courage you need to get some stuff going here with this Queen of Cups, but you may be not sure if that's really what you want yet or not. Even though you have the fire and you're lit and you want to get going, you want to work with someone, maybe you're somebody that's been thinking about settling down, and now here comes this person, and now that it's really happening, you're not sure you're ready. You might be feeling some trepidation. As much as you're on fire to work with this person, you're feeling a little bit conflicted about it. And now that brings us to the point in time. So I've said this before, but I feel like it's probably due to be said again. Gender can be either way here. So Queens, if we're speaking about Queens, you might be a person who identifies as a masculine person in life, but this still can represent you. Tarot doesn't always line up. It's about energy polarity. So I'm not somebody who subscribes to the importance of gender norms or whatever, right? But the tarot is very organized around those types of energies. And so queens and kings and pages and energies come out in a gendered expression. But just know it can be reversed. Also, sometimes, especially with love readings, what I have found, and what I think is true for others as well, is that you may be listening to this and realizing it's not your reading, but it's a reading for your loved one about the circumstance, and you're getting like a glimpse into what they're experiencing, and you understand that intuitively, or maybe because you know something about what's going on in their lives, right? But I have the sense here that this might have been a no contact circumstance, and now you're back in contact for some reason. What's to come is this feeling of blocked stuckness. You have, and again, it's the same kind of 2 and 4 of Cups energy. You have a history of maybe some distorted feminine energy in your background, where the women in your life may have been manipulators or may have exploited the men in their lives in some way. I have someone in my life who was raised by someone like that in very close proximity, without busting anyone or calling anyone out or anything like that. She's no longer with us, but still I have living loved ones who are connected to her, even in her memory. She was like that. She was a manipulator. She played men as fools. She exploited them. She used sex as a weapon. She did a lot of, but she also at times in her life had to survive by being a sex worker. So I'm not trying to even really, in some way, she had her own story that took her down that road. That's neither here nor there, but it's still, regardless, it exists in the world. And this is what's coming through to me, is that you have had experiences where you felt invaded, or that the women in your life in some way only took from you, or exploited your emotions or were narcissistic towards you. This is kind of coming through loud and clear. So even though you want love, and you may even really feel loving towards this Queen of Cups, when she expressed herself to you, you were like, no fucking way, I'm running for the hills, because you have some trauma around how it might have even been your own mother, for example. The person I'm speaking of, it was the mother to the people that I love, right? So she taught them some really twisted lessons about how to get by, how to use men, like how to, right? These are power things that are as old as the hills in society, especially societies under patriarchy. So that's what's in play for you. The near future is that you're feeling blocked, or maybe like you don't know what to do to move things forward, because this block is very real for you. You are very fearful about winding up in another situation where you're being taken advantage of by a woman. I'm just going to say it outright. Women have dealt with this in a different version of the same kind of experience, and I would venture to say more than men, but debate me if you want, that's fine. But women have often experiences of not knowing who, if any, men are good. Are all men gonna beat the fuck out of me? Are all men gonna rape me and sexually assault me and think I should like it? Are all men gonna, we just elected for 4 years a fucking serial rapist and sexual assault. So why would women feel safe, right? But this is like the tables are reversed. You've been a masculine that's been very harmed by women. And of course there are women abusers. They just abuse in a different way, in a more underhanded way, because of weird fucking power layers like patriarchy. So this is some deep shit we're talking about. Maybe this is why the anthem was fucking problems, okay? And we'll get more into like why it's a personal anthem for me, but I can see now in this layout why it's coming out for someone. So this blocked feeling, but it doesn't matter. It's brought a judgment day to you. So even if your shadow side is saying run for the hills, bitches don't want to do anything but, bros before hoes or whatever it is, right? Like there's a shadow aspect of you that learned not to trust women. Your dad might not have trusted women, right? Like these kinds of messages get passed down. So in the near future, that you're still struggling with feelings of being blocked. You might not be totally sure why, but regardless, life is pushing this forward to a judgment day for you. This person might be in some kind of divine timing has shown up. This could feel like a fated relationship, and this person's tapped you on the shoulder like, hey, I love you, I'm in love with you, and your whole system is just freaking out because it's got some trauma around love and relationships. It's a really common issue, me included. I've had my own demons I've had to heal from. So coming forward, while all this judgment, you might be feeling like judgment's raining down on you for some reason, and lost, and then this confession of love made it feel even worse for some reason, or like I don't know exactly. But there's just a 4 of Cups, a judgment day, and a 2 of Swords. It's almost like you're being forced to stand still while some things unfold, or you're being forced to examine, why did somebody who I feel for, who told me they love me, why did it rock my world in this negative way? That might be the judgment day, right? You might be going within like, what's with the fact that I can't handle this person who I feel for telling me they're in love with me, right? Like, what is it about this circumstance that's creating this kind of terror in my heart and that's making me want to shut down and push it all away, right? That's coming through really clearly. You're feeling like you really have to defend yourself to some extent. That's coming through loud and clear. Beyond it, though, is that you seem ready to take some kind of action because boom, boom, this is you. The Knight of Swords and the Knight of Cups. You are in love also. You feel in love with this person, but you might end up doing something like, because you're still not quite sure if you can trust it or how to deal with something like this, you might be a little bit of a dick about it still. I just got to be real with you. Like you might, and again, this is gender, it's coming out in a gendered way, but the roles can be reversed, and maybe I should start learning how to not use some, that's the language I grew up with. So I'm really prone to using language like that. But you might do something like reach back out to her and say, what the fuck? just when I'm trying to get some kind of calm in my life, you show back up and stir everything up again. Like, why won't, you might be mad at her in some ways for telling you she loves you. There might, for some reason, that might be making you angry, right? And maybe I don't know anything about her other than she's in her heart center in an upright way. She doesn't seem like she meant to do this, but it's really been triggering for you. So after this blocked period of time, what I'm kind of seeing is that you might feel like breaking out of it and breaking the no contact, because these are messages. Knights are also messengers and communication. And this is a very quick response that might be like, yeah, I love you, but fuck you. Why do you keep showing up? You know I can't be with you, or whatever. I don't know. It might look something like this, is what you may even be thinking about it. Like, you're blocked and you're not taking any action right now, but that's where your mind is that you're still mad at her and thinking about putting her back in her place. Like, okay, so what? We love each other. What does that mean? We can't, I don't know. There might be some reason why this is enraging to you. And then beyond that is the Five of Pentacles. So you're in need of some morale boosting, and that's why this reading is coming out, because the energy in the near future for you beyond the present moment is still feeling kind of blocked, kind of torn, kind of conflicted. Like you want to charge forward and maybe even scramble or like get into it and grapple with her. Like sometimes passionate love relationships have passionate fights, and that could be in play here. This is this is something that, and in some like family systems or even in some cultural systems, you could argue that it's normal to have this kind of passionate arguing in relationships, that it's part of having a passionate relationship, is that you may love hard, but you might also fight hard. It can also mean a toxic dynamic though, like you get addicted to a fighting conflict type dynamic where you fight and then make up sexually and then fight and then make up sexually, but you never tap into the deeper heart issues. And so you get in a toxic cycle of that kind. It could be something like that you're afraid of repeating. I'm going to pull some clarifiers now about this. What should you do? You need some anthems. That's the message, because that came out before I even did the layout, was that use of anthems and anthem music that can boost you and help you feel empowered and less fearful can help right now. They might help you break through the fear and the blocked heart. You might be trying to block your heart and finding that it's not working. That anything you're trying to do to block this experience is raining hell in your life, because you're meant to let some love in and you're fighting it, or I don't know. It's coming through that you feel very conflicted about the love. That's just real talk here. And that's why you're in need of something to pick you up. Fucking problems. Listen to it. It's going to boost you. It's going to boost you. It boosts me. It's an anthem for me. What's some advice for you? The Advocate and the Innovator. So this is your advice. Let's see what it has to say here. I can see an advocate being somebody that uses anthemic work to pump other people up if you're advocating for them, right? What's this going to say, though, here about the Advocate? This is your advice. Time for teamwork. Teaming up. You got panicked at the thought, as much as part of you wants it, because you're in love too. This Knight of Cups would not be here otherwise, but you might be afraid of it. Like you're uneasy about it. Is this new love just going to come in and take from you again, right? Time for teamwork, enlisting the help of others, and a little bit of fact-finding. By all means, speak up, but brush up on your communication skills by pausing to listen until you are certain that your message will be taken in the right context and be as effective as possible. So that Knight of Swords, you might be coming in hot when you initiate a contact with this person again. So this is advice for how to manage that. These two knights here in sequence. If you are stuck, then you need to reevaluate your commitments. Boom, this stuck feeling up here, right? The Advocate is dedicated to change for the greater good, and they will create a life that revolves around this. Those in their sphere are thought of as team. and family members working with them in all sorts of capacities for the shared vision. So that's great. But it threw you off. You're not sure if you're ready, right? I feel that. You feel anxious, but also inspired with this Three of Wands. The Innovator, another Three of Wands card, the Innovator, 42. So this was card 32, and this is card 42, which indicates a progression to me in a nice way of tens. I remember being so proud as a kid, being able to count by tens. It's funny. The Innovator. Action needs to be undertaken now before the plans of others take over. Be careful with your ideas and who you trust, as you do have something special to work on, and that opportunity needs to be protected. These two knights can protect that. That's what knights do. So that's good. You're in a warrior energy, and that's another reason why fucking problems is an anthem of mine too, because I have a Mars in Aries. I have a really, really potent warrior spirit in me that was not always okay or accepted in people, by people around me. Look closely before you leave, but a new charity will help resolve any clouded facets soon. The Innovator is a planner who is good at problem solving and gaining clarity, and giving clarity to areas that may have proved challenging for others. They provide fresh eyes and insight when they are on board, and once they begin, their action is hard to slow down and impossible to stop. That's wonderful. So no worries about these fears. They're shadow-based fears that can't stop you, pretty much, especially if once you're aware of them, then you can do things like play anthems to kind of move yourself along and help yourself get going. So now, instead of pulling a whole bunch more cards, I'm just going to share that anthem story because I don't want this to go on and on. So waking up to that and then choosing fucking problems, and then kind of realizing like, oh, there's some layers to that, because I'm going to be on here on my channel trying to own a song like fucking Problems as a white woman, and that's problematic, and I agree, and I own that, and I want to be responsible for that kind of thing. So that's why I'm speaking to it in this way, because the reason that song is like an anthem to me is because it speaks to the part of me that is never got to be allowed to be a warrior and thuggish and a fighter. And I grew up around guys like that. That's who I ran with. They were rural white kids, but they were like, if we're talking revolution, we were the kids that would have been the rednecks in the Fred Hampton coalition that he was building with the Young Lords and the Black Panthers. The guys I grew up with would have been those guys in the white community, like the rural, poor white folks that get called white trash, right? Those were the guys I ran with. So we were sneaking out, we were breaking laws, we were having sex, we were taking drugs, we were doing psychedelics, we were just, raising hell in our little rural town in the way that you get noticed then by the cops. And I have criminals in my family. So I grew up hating the cops, right? And so I remember thinking like, we all hate the cops, right? Like that's something we all share as our value. I just assumed that because we would talk about, they would call the cops pigs and stuff. And so, well, I smell bacon, stuff like that. Like it was a shared value with the kids that I grew up with. I remember though, as we got older, further along in high school, when we would be talking, I remember half those kids saying that they wanted to be cops. And I was stunned. I could not believe it. I was probably 16. And I just was like, what a bunch of fucking traitors. I couldn't believe it. I felt personally betrayed, even though I've never even been arrested, right? Like I had the white girl privilege of the cops never noticed me. I wasn't any kind of threat to the cops. It was the guys I ran with. So I had privilege there. White privilege as a white woman. So, but still I was like, what? Like I couldn't believe it. And I remember just tearing into them one night, and whatever, we were just partying. It's not like we were out there trying to start a revolution. We didn't like the cops because they were trying to interfere with our fun. It wasn't until later that got radicalized for me in a way that I'm glad to have seen the light. But I remember being like, why would you ever be a cop? That's so messed up. Like they're our enemy. Like I just couldn't get my head around it. But the reason they wanted to be cops was so they could carry a firearm, right? So they could take some drugs and on the sly and never get in trouble, right? Just steal some of what was confiscated. Being crooked cops basically is what they were getting at. And I just remember being shocked and like, never, I would never, I was so, and granted, I've had a lot of life now where, I've realized at points like, oh, you think never, never say never. I've had to face my own inner cop, maybe, right? So, the reason I loved songs like that, like stuff from NWA and early like West Coast rap, was because it spoke to that part of me that wasn't accepted where I lived. And it wasn't just them. I found them later because little white kids in rural West Coast, it took a while before we caught on to that kind of thing, but we were into Ren DMC and all that. But anyways, my early hating on cops was from the punk movement and from metal, and that was another way that I felt they were betraying. Like, how can you love all these songs, and or friends that loved the Clash but then would try to speak to us about not hating on cops and they're just trying to do their job, and I would be like, what? How can you listen to the Clash? Like, how can you? I just didn't understand it. To me, it was really, but people make those kinds of compromises all the time. Cops listen to KRS-One, right? Like, there's weird ways that you compartmentalize. And so part of why West Coast rap felt personal to me is because I grew up around kids that were doing underhanded shit and breaking laws and trying to get away from it. There was for sure a racial divide, and I'm not going to pretend like there wasn't. A lot of the kids that I ran with were racist themselves, and that's also why we parted ways. Because once I started kind of cluing in, like, you're not even trying to see beyond any of this, you're just going to stay right where you are, I left, So that's the kind of story there. The other reason that I love Fucking Problems as an anthem is because in integrating my own masculine and feminine, because at some point in my early adulthood, I just really had to man up. There weren't men showing up for me in my life. I had to become a man, basically, to get shit moving forward in my own life. I had to speak like a man. I had to fight like a man. I had to do a lot of that. I got really imbalanced in the masculine energy within myself so that I couldn't really let men close, and I chose men who were dysfunctional, who didn't want to get close, right? So those songs feel like anthems to me, only in the reverse. I identified with it because I didn't want people to get close. So this might be something like that. Like, had some amazing man shown up in my early 20s that wanted me to give me the world, I would have been like, so this is that kind of energy. So go listen to some Black Flag, go listen to some early West Coast rap, maybe The Chronic, or some, like, go listen to The Clash, go listen to anything that pumps you up about stuff like this. I like that song because I feel like it allows me to be a bad bitch. I can be angry and a fighter and a feminine, and I can also embrace the masculine side of me that had to be a man to get shit done in my own life and protect myself and put up a wall and be really cold and like, no, yeah, let's fuck, let's go, and then not let my heart be opened, right? Like, that was a lot of where I came from. So that's why those songs mean something to me, and why anthems came through, and I hope that's helpful. I worry that I'm getting preachy. Someone just gave me a really wonderful comment saying that they like the storytelling, so thank you. I love to listen to stories, so I'm hoping that these readings go towards people that like to listen to stories too. And in honor of A$AP Rocky, I love Fucking Problems. Go listen to it right now and turn it up and do the explicit version. All right.